What is up?
Hey, everybody. What is up? Look
What's
at Tanya
going
Browning
on?
first, rolling in at 6:30 tonight, just so she could be
Oh,
first.
Philip's out
Princess
riding.
special.
They see
Max
me.
has joined us. Tony's here. So how's everybody doing tonight? Throw it up in the comments. Let us know what you've been up to lately. We've got a great guest for you tonight.
Great
I'm
guest.
excited to great guest. I'm finally excited to actually get to speak to him and meet him in person. Been following him for a while as well. And he drives a Tacoma, so you already know he's cool for that.
Right.
So, I mean, Tacoma's where it's at, Chris. One of these days we're gonna convert you. We'll just get you
no, there's a reason I drive a Tundra, and actually Brian has something to do with it. I'll tell you that in a minute.
I don't know, man. I mean, even your son, he knows. Your boy knows. He's like, Uncle Brian's got a Tacoma.
So if you guys don't know who we're talking about Brian Gallion of Off Grid Backcountry Adventures. He's been a friend of mine for a very long time, and so we're going to have him in here in a few minutes. I want to remind everybody we're having our meetup this weekend at the Charles C. Dean Wilderness Blackwell Horse Camp. Looks like the rain's going to be there a little bit, but it won't be too bad. So we hope everybody shows up. Going to be a giveaway on Saturday and a day hike. Yeah, what do you expect?
If Chris and I are together, it's going to be a little precipitation somewhere. But we'll get through it. It won't be our first to go around with the rain and everything. But just remind everybody to come out, bring toilet paper, bring a bundle of wood. Tanya's going to bring a bunch of soap, so she'll be bathing everybody when we get stinky. It is what it is.
That ain't that kind of meetup. What's going on there?
I'm just trying to get a reaction out of Tanya. I'm picking on her a little bit. So we're excited. We're going to have, if you guys haven't heard too, so there's a group that Chris ran into called Indie Overlanders, and he invited them out, and I've been watching them on Facebook. They were actually promoted it as well. So
I just actually heard from their leader, Jordan, and he said they're going to roll in about Saturday afternoon. Looks like. So
cool.
Just let everybody know. Okay, so our guest. Let me tell you how I met him. Years ago, there was an app on iPhone that you could get called Yonder. I don't know if anybody remembers that app. And basically, it was an app that you could find people who are interested in the outdoors, who want to go hiking and that kind of thing. And you could connect with them. It's kind of like an early version of Tinder, but without the dating for outdoor people. And so I met my friend Jen, who she lived in Louisville at the time. I met my friend Jen on that app. And then I also started talking with Brian through her. I think she met him first. But then we were going to go out west and we were going to do a couple of trips, and we went out and hung out with Brian. I think also took my kids on a vacation out there, and we hung out with Brian for a little bit and had a good time. He showed us around some really good campsites around Buena Vista and Salida. And good time. So that's how I know Brian. And I actually, I'll let him tell, like, he started YouTube after me, but he blew up because he makes great content and I don't. And so he blew up. And so he's been killing it ever since. And so that's the story of Brian Gallion.
That's the story, right? So just so everybody, reminder, if you guys have questions along the way you would like to ask Brian, just put question in all caps and then throw it up there, and we'll try to get to them all that we can. So the caps kind of help us notice them in the comments. So Mark Sloan's here as well. So cool. So you ready to bring Brian in?
I am. Okay. So let's, looks like he's ready. So let's bring him in, and boom.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Hello.
Sierra.
Hi, Sierra.
Yeah, she's kind of crashed out. She just had some dinner, so I just fed her this rabbit meat that's like a superfood, because with her illness and everything. So she'll eat this stuff, and within about an hour, once it kicks in her system, we'll be out walking. She's got tons of energy, and it's awesome to see. Hey, you were talking about that YouTube stuff, Chris. The reason why I did YouTube was because you kept telling me, do YouTube. And I was like, fine, I'll do it, and then it took off, which I was really
you blew up, man.
I owe you a big thanks for encouraging me to do that.
Well, I owe you big thanks. Let's pat each other on the back here. I owe you big thanks because you've been a truck camper for a long time in the back of your Tacoma.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, my rig today was inspired based on what you had, except for one little thing is that I got a Tundra because I wouldn't fit in the back of a Tacoma.
It's pretty tight in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got my Tundra so I could actually sleep in it versus going diagonal like you used to have to.
Yeah. Yeah. That diagonal sleeping, man, that literally made me question my decisions. I was like, am I doing the right thing out here by truck camping? Because literally the way it was set up in my 5-foot bed, I'd have to be diagonal. My head would hit the window that would the gate that comes down on the topper, and my feet would be flush with the wall of like the front wall, and I couldn't move. Like Sierra was on one side, and it was just basically, and it was like this far from like the ceiling. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like,
well, and I learned from that. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it was not comfortable. But I did that for a year and a half. But the crazy thing was I got to the point to where I could sleep like 10 hours a night in that, which was crazy because when I was in the corporate world, before I left the corporate world in 2015, dude, I couldn't sleep at all because just the stress and, I was in sales. And so that's like, what have you done for me lately sort of profession. And so it doesn't matter how many deals you close, you always have to have more in the pipeline. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I don't believe in what I'm doing. Like, I don't believe in any of the products I'm selling or anything like that. And so that's why when I had an opportunity to sell everything and hit the road, and after I adopted this little one, I took that chance, and it worked out. And I'm really glad that I did it because, especially now, seeing kind of the way things are in corporate America, I don't think I do very well in it.
Well, let's back up a little bit and get into that story because you've been on the road. Well, you have been on the road for, I guess you're still technically on the road for 7+ years. And what was that first year like in discovering how to make that work?
Well, do you remember Valerie and what was that? Her husband's name? They were from Alaska, and they used to live in a van. They were on yonder with us, and I can't remember her husband's name, but anyway, they were kind of like my teachers when I first got on the road because the first day that I hit the road, I met up with them. And I arrived at camp. I'm like, so what do we do? Because I was so used to working all the time, Yeah. And it was weird how that was like programmed into my brain. I couldn't. It'd be like Tuesday at 10 a.m. and I'd be gearing up to go fly fishing, but I'd feel guilty. I'd feel like I'd have to be at the office, And so
how long did that take you to get over?
About 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it took a lot longer than I thought. Other people told me that it left them within about a year, but for me it was about 4 years. And initially, when I first hit the road, it wasn't to be on the road for, I got off the road, when Sierra got cancer, but we still kind of do nomad stuff. But before that, it was 7.5 years of full blown going, and even when I was sick with Giardia and I was down to 119 pounds, I still was out there, winter camping and stuff like that. So it was hard. But that first year, my goal was to find like a really cool mountain town to settle down in. And then I just, start a new life there. But that first year came and went, and I'm like, there's no way I'm stopping this, man. I'm having so much fun. Because I was challenging myself to wake up at a new campsite every day for a year. And so I never stayed in the same spot for more than 24 hours. So I was just jamming and going to all these different spots. And I'd go to like Utah, and then I started venturing down into northern Arizona and then also northern New Mexico. Because, before I hit the road, all my adventures were just in Colorado. Yeah. Because that was my backyard because I lived in Denver. But once I was able to roam a little bit more, I started realizing how much great terrain there is out there in the American Southwest and just how wide open the expanses are, like in New Mexico and northern Arizona and southern Utah. It's not like Colorado where there's people crawling all over the place. You can really get out and get some solitude out there. And so once I started going to those areas, that's when my mindset kind of shifted. Because up until that point, I wanted to be in a Colorado mountain town. And then I started coming like to the Flagstaff area and then going into northern New Mexico and going to like, let's see, like the San Antonio Hot Springs out there, which is near Jemez Springs, and beautiful area. No one around, like no one, compared to Colorado. Yeah. And so I started going to these areas and I started thinking like, okay, cool. I can chase good weather all year long. And then when winter comes around, I do enjoy winter camping with the wood stove and the tent and everything. So I just circle back to Colorado at that time and I do like southern Colorado because those are the areas that don't really get hit that much and they still have trails that are open in the winter.
San Juan area.
Yeah, San Juan, Sangre de Cristos, Rio Grande National Forest, San Isabel National Forest, stuff like that. And but I realized that I could follow good weather just by going around the Four Corners region, and that's why you see so many nomads out in this section of the country, because it's like it's amazing. Just between Sedona and Flagstaff, which is only an hour drive, you have 2 weather zones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so like if it's cold up here, I can just bounce down to Sedona. It's always about 10 to 15 degrees warmer. And then the summertime, you come back up here and it only gets up to like 75 or 80 in the summertime, like the hottest days in Flagstaff.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so it's pretty nice. And then you have those huge ponderosa pines, which give you a massive amount of shade. Yeah. So it's pretty nice up here. The only thing I will say though is like the lack of rivers and the lack of fly fishing. That's the only thing I really miss about being in Colorado full time. But there are places around here that you can go fish, and you can fish for like rare Gila trout or Apache trout. You know, they're very, very rare, and to catch those, that's pretty special. So
I've never even heard either one of those kind of trout.
Yeah.
So not that I'm a big trout fisherman, but I grew up fishing and I've never even heard of those.
Yeah, look them up, because I didn't know about them either until I got out here, and they're very. I think they're not. I don't think they're critically endangered yet, but they're endangered. So they're
that low. Huh?
Yeah.
So I remember your fly fishing videos a long time ago, and how much fun you and Sierra just hike up to a lake and just cast all day.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things you miss. So what would be one of the things in Arizona that you like more than Colorado?
Oh, all the Native American ruins, because
you've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, and I've been volunteering now for about 3 years with a group out of Sedona, and Spence Gustav is our lead archaeologist, and we go around and we photo document all the new Native American ruins that we find. And we were originally giving it to the gal in the Cocosino Ranger District here in Flagstaff that we thought was like all about heritage and all that stuff. Come to find out, she was giving all the new sites, the coordinates to the ATV companies out here, and tour groups started showing up. So we said, screw that. So now what we do is we work directly with the Hopi Nation, which is way better than the Forest Service. Yeah. And it's cool. Like I don't necessarily get to talk to them, but Spence does all the time, and he'll come back and be like, oh, I was just up at Hopi Nation, and here's what they want us to do going forward and all that stuff. Because a lot of the ruins down in the Sedona area are Hopi, Yavapai Apache, Sinagua, and there's one other. I can't remember what the other one is, but the Hopi had the main presence down here. Same with Sinagua. So they have like tons of roots down here. Like the history for the religion is down here and all that stuff. So they come down often, which is cool. And so working with that group, there's 19 published sites around the Flagstaff and Sedona area that the Forest Service has made known to the public. But we've documented almost 7,000 ruin sites.
Wow.
That many. And I found 26 new ones last year that they didn't know about. So that's how I got in touch with. That's how I got in good favor with this group. Is that initially I gave money, because when YouTube, before I got shadow banned on YouTube, if I got a sponsor, I would just give all that money to conservation. So like wherever I was at, if I was in Bears Ears, I give it to Bears Ears, or if I was down in the Gila Wilderness, I give it to the Gila Wilderness Foundation or whatever,
Yeah.
And so I gave some to keep Sedona beautiful. And the main guy, Craig, over there was like, what do you like to do? Like, what are your hobbies? And I was like, I go camping in this really remote spot around Sedona. And I'm seeing these ruins. I was like, there's no trails to them. There's like pottery everywhere. There's axe heads laying on the ground. There's spear tips, that are like bigger than my hand. I'm like, no one's been out there. I was like, I go out there, I'll camp for 2 weeks at a time. I'll never see anybody. And he's like, well, let me put you in touch with Spence. And this was back, like 3 years ago. He's like, let me put you in touch with Spence. And like, he has a lot of stuff in the system, but if there's anything new, he might want to talk to you. I'm thinking, oh, okay. So I emailed Spence. Spence emails me back. He's like, yeah, we've got like almost 7,000 in the system. So we probably already have these sites, but why don't you go ahead and send me like a handful of the ones that you've been checking out, and I'll let you know if we have them or not. So I sent him 5 of the ones that I thought were really impressive. He's like, we have no record of any of these. Where'd you find these at? He's like, I told him, and there's actually 2 mountains that are named the same. There's one that's near Sedona and one that's way out in the middle of nowhere. So I told him the name, and he's like, here in town? I'm like, no. I was like, no, it's not even close to that. I was like, the 4x4 to get there is like an hour long, and that's in my truck, and I can go pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's right up against this wilderness area. But what's cool is everything's line of sight. And so there's across the Verde River, which is like the Verde River Canyon through Arizona is amazing when it comes to ruins. I mean, there's like the Sinagua were the main tribe down in that area, and they were known for like their beautiful architecture with their ruins. I mean, you'll go into some of these ruins and like the ceilings are still 100% intact, and you're like, this is 1,000 years old.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy to see that. And you can see how they built it too, because you can look at the cross section of it.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just like, wow, it's amazing. It's still standing, you know? And it's like they're perched up on these cliffs. I mean, like, I would never think about even remotely building something up there, but they build these huge, you know, structures. And so that's every time I get to a new structure, my imagination just runs wild, and I'm just like,
oh, I'm sure.
Man. It's just so cool to see that stuff. And the more remote you get, the more artifacts you see lying on the ground. There's one site that I went to that had next to the axe head, which the axe head was as big as my hand. And so I was looking on the ground. I'm like, wait a minute, that's like an axe head. And you could see where the area where they made the flint mapping to like put the sinew around it to attach it to like a stick and everything. But the stick has long since rotted away, and same with the sinew. But you could see it. And then right next to that was a piece of pottery that was about the size of a normal plate. And I was just like, holy shit, wow. This is just sitting out there, you know, in the middle of nowhere. And so my strategy, what I would do with Sierra is, you know, she likes to go walking around and just explore, but she goes slow and just kind of pokes around. So what I would do is, you know, Sedona has a lot of cactus and all that stuff, but it has really fine sand, like really fine sand. It feels great to walk on barefoot. Yeah. So what I would do is I would go walk to these areas barefoot with her. So it'd make me look at the ground, and I was seeing so much stuff. And so what I realized is that when I get into these washes around these areas that we thought would have ruins, if you get into the washes, and those are the seasonal creeks in Arizona, all those artifacts eventually make their way down to those washes, and you can use them like a breadcrumb trail that goes back up to the ruins. So that's cool. That's why I did this last year, and that's why I was able to find 26 new sites, because I just all day long I just go walk all these washes. Yeah. And so I just can't get enough of it, man. It's so cool. That makes
for some very cool hikes. I mean,
oh man, yeah, and just the stuff that you see back in there. I mean, it gets you into terrain, especially in these wilderness areas. Like the wilderness areas in Arizona are unreal. Like, you know, you go into the wilderness areas in Colorado, and a lot of times you can't tell, like, is this just national forest or is this wilderness area? Because it kind of looks the same. Arizona is different than that. You walk into the wilderness areas in Arizona, and you're like, holy shit, it's amazing the difference. And I've got 2 wilderness areas close to my place. But the property I have out here in northern Arizona in the middle of nowhere, there's 2 wilderness areas over there, and there's 4 seasonal creeks or 4 spring-fed creeks that flow year round that no one knows about.
Really? Oh, is that the one that your recent video that you did a plunge in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's only about 20 minutes from my place.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now you also have a place in Colorado. It's like it's a strip of land, right?
Well, so I got to do a video about that. I sued the realtor and got my money back. Because he told me that I was buying the parcel underneath the one that actually was for sale.
Right. Yeah, I remember that video.
Yeah, because you couldn't like the little geologic markers that they use for the corners of the lots and stuff like that. Those were put in the 1970s out there, but there's lots of, like, in that area there's rock slides and there's snow and there's debris that comes down and all that stuff. So all those pins have been kind of wiped away over the years, and so I was relying on the realtor to tell me where the parcel was. And he's like, oh yeah, this is it right here. I'm like, cool. Can I have this deck? I mean, or is the seller gonna, he's like, oh, you can have the deck. It wasn't even his. Right. He's just a total shyster. And so I sued him and got my money back. And so I just got information on another parcel of land in the same area that just came up for sale. But, you know, now that I'm starting to homestead out here in Arizona, I don't know if I want to go out there to Colorado. And on top of it too, the area where I was looking in, it's Jasper, Colorado. It's not known at all. Like, no one goes out there. It's kind of a pain in the ass to get to, because it's only 20 miles as the crow flies from like Del Norte or South Fork, but it takes about 2.5 hours to get there because the Forest Service trails are like this and they're super bumpy and all that stuff. And, you know, before Starlink, I mean, it's like 30 miles outside of cell range, or 20 miles outside of cell range. So, like, you know, it was kind of more of a vacation spot. But now people are starting to come around, and unfortunately, it's a lot of people that are from out of state, and they just want to tell people what to do and stuff like that. So I think what I'm going to do is I've got a friend who's got land outside of that town, just a little bit to the west. And he was telling me, he's like, I have a creek on there too. He's like, if you want, I could carve out 2 acres for you. And so I may go with something like that, because then I could be on live water, you know, which would be really cool.
Live water is essential.
Yeah,
it's essential for having land, right?
Totally, yeah. And so, and the water that comes down from there's no mines above it because that area is heavily mined. And so the water is actually, you can drink it and everything. It doesn't have any heavy metal in it. And so he told me, he's like, oh, I'll hook you up, So I'm going to wait to hear what he has to say this summer. But what's nice about that is I'd be outside of the town city limits. And the town is, dinky. There's maybe the full-time residents, there's only 2 full-time residents that live there year round.
Yeah.
And the rest of the people, it's just seasonal. But they have an HOA that can be kind of restrictive. And it's kind of the good old boys club. They're the people that have been around the longest or on the board, and they kind of give everybody shit. And so I don't want to deal with that. So if I can get this parcel from my friend Peter, that's Creekside, then I wouldn't have an HOA and I could build whatever I want out there.
I tell you what, you get that, and I got me a truck camping spot.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and what's cool?
I know one thing.
What's that, Brian?
I was gonna say I know one thing. I've been to Sedona once and kind of done like all the touristy hikes and everything. But I know my wife and I want to go back. Next time I go, I know who I'll be calling.
Yeah, dude, hit me up.
Definitely.
There are so many great spots out there.
Yeah,
and the terrain is just amazing. It's like literally like you're on another planet. Like the red rocks and everything out there, and the cliffs, and you drive around, and you're just like, this is so unique. It's so different than anything else.
You did a video where you were camping on, I want to see if I pronounce this right, Mongolian Rim?
Mogollon
Rim.
Yep.
Dude, that campsite that you had at the edge, that was beautiful.
Dude, so that feature goes for 200 miles through northern Arizona.
Really?
Yeah, there's so many spots. If you ever wanted to, if you ever have like a huge break in your schedule, for either one of you guys, if you have a huge break in your schedule, if you wanted to like come out here and go camp some badass areas, there's so much around Arizona. Like, I gotta be honest. I was kind of ignorant about Arizona. I thought it was all like Phoenix.
Right.
No, only Phoenix is like Phoenix. Everything else is awesome. So, Phoenix is fine too. It's just a big city, but it's just.
I was actually born in Phoenix.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, lived there for a while.
I tell you what, how has the flooding been lately? Oh, it's been crazy. The flooding out here has been nuts. My place is finally not flooding anymore, which is good. But we were trapped in our little area of northern Arizona for 4 days at one time because the seasonal creeks were going so high that like we couldn't go through them with our 4x4 trucks and stuff. I tried to go through it in my quad. And I got real deep, and I'm like, nope. And I just immediately put it in reverse and got out of there as quick as I could. But the flooding was crazy. And then in Flagstaff, it was really crazy. There's still the main peaks out here, like the San Francisco peaks right outside of town, they're all still covered in a huge blanket of snow. Yeah. So that hasn't even melted yet.
Well, they were talking about closing Yosemite because in a preparation for the flooding, I heard.
Yeah, I saw that. I would imagine because California got clobbered, man.
Yeah, multiple, like at least almost 100 feet or so.
Yeah.
So do you miss, I know you talked about Arizona and how great it, and besides fly fishing, do you miss anything about the weather in Colorado? You turned me on to Buena Vista, and then you're like, well, I don't like Buena Vista anymore. I'm going away. Because I love, because that was my first experience as a mountain town. And it's a great one to have for a first experience.
Yeah, it's just blown up because like Denver, it's become a bedroom community for Denver now, and so like the little shacks that they couldn't give away in town when I was hanging out in there now go for like almost $1 million, which is crazy. And so it's so busy there that like I'm like, I know a ton of other places that don't have any people, and I'll just go there. Like I've been spending a lot more time in the San Juan Mountains. I initially spent a ton of time in the San Isabel Mountains because of all the great fly fishing. Because in the collegiate peaks, there's just so much as far as fly fishing is concerned. But and also great 4x4ing. There's tons of great trails. All the old mining trails. That's why it's good for Brian for us to have like Tacomas. Because that's a smaller footprint out there. And the tundras are good too, but it's just we can maneuver a little bit better. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I'd love to have the extra space, to be honest, because I'm getting older and
it is nice.
Yeah,
it is nice.
There's days I'm like, man, I should have bought a Tundra. Like I have a camper that I pull to, and my Tacoma pulls my camper. It's not a big one; it's like 26 feet. It pulls it, but I'm like, man, a Tundra would make this so much easier.
Yeah, but then you go to the gas station and you're fine because then you feel better.
That's just it. Yeah, the gas. My buddies.
My Tacoma does not get good mileage.
No, yeah. Well, mine doesn't either. I've got so much stuff on it now. I mean, obviously, when it didn't have it, it had great mileage. But my friends that have like the first gen Tundras that are all decked out with stuff, they're like at about 10 or 9. Yeah, and I'm like, ooh, I'm still getting 15, which I'm like, okay, that's not bad considering all the crap that I have in my truck. But
that's where I usually rank 14 or 15. I've got a 3-inch lift and 33s on it with a V6, and
yep.
that all kind of starts cutting it down pretty quick.
Yeah, I did find a really nice Tundra that was out in Oregon, and it's a 2002, and it has the factory installed supercharger, which is rare because those at the 5,000 RPM mark, they have 502 horsepower, which is crazy in that truck. But I don't know what it is with the people from Portland though. They like think these trucks are made of gold. They're asking 25 grand for it. It had 150,000 miles. I was like, well, I'd give you 17, but I wouldn't give you anything more than that. And the guy's like, well, the bank told me that I could get 26. I was like, well, the bank was lying to you.
Yeah.
So to the bank.
That, yeah, exactly. I'm not going to be taken for a ride like that. But I would like to get a first gen Tundra eventually, but I'm not in any hurry. I mean, my truck's fine. And once the wheels fall off of it, I'll probably make a switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've put a lot of work into your truck, not just, but I mean to keep it as a truck camping setup. I mean, you did all that modification with the slide out and all of that, which I've seen copied, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And I've sold so I made little design guide plans, which is like a 40-page PDF that I sell for $5 on my website. I think I've sold almost 1,000 of those now.
Well, people are doing it because I've seen pictures of them.
And I've seen other channels that have it too. And so I've seen it to where in the comment section, people be like, that's Brian's and stuff. And I'll get on the back. No, it's all good. Like I've sell these and it's, I didn't patent it. It's a very simple idea. And some of the modifications people have made with the slide outs, I'm like, man, that's a great idea. It's stuff I didn't think about,
Right.
And it's kind of cool. Cause like Truck Bed Living on Instagram, I talk to them a lot. And,
I follow them.
Yeah, and I always tell them like there was one guy on there just recently the other day that had a slide out extension, and it looked great. It did a great job with it. It was all stained. It looked nice. It wasn't ghetto like mine is. I mean, mine's falling apart, and I don't care. It
was years ago.
Yeah, and I kind of like the janky look. I don't know why. I'm just
as I remember, you kind of had to do that because you're staying with your parents at the time, if I remember, and you're like, I need to do something for sleep. I need to get sleep. And that's where that was born, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I was back there my mom had knee surgery and my dad was gone to Europe for work. And so I was like, well, I can come back and, cause I was doing YouTube. I was like, I can come back and help you out until you get your mobility back and all that stuff. And so, I was like, while I was there, I'm like, man, I need to build like a slide out extension or something. It's just something that I can sleep in it. And when I got that in there, man, I can tell you that was a total game changer for me. I started getting more comfortable again because my body was getting real jacked up in such a small sleep area, especially if you're on trail all day long and then you come back and you don't have a nice place to sleep. Those aches and pains can really stack up, And so that's where it's like, I wanted to make it to where I could sleep comfortably, but that I wouldn't spend all day in there. And so, because I felt like if I had like a camper, like a full-size camper that I could stand up in, I'd probably spend a ton of time in there because I noticed that my friends, when I go camp with them, when they'd have those, they'd spend all their time inside. And I was like, well, I want to be outside, and that's where I have like the swing out with my tailgate, the swing out the drop-down table so I can cook outside and hang out outside and all that stuff. And then also too with like this lumberjack, that goes off the back real well. It creates a real nice covered area that's like be screened in. So that's great for early season fly fishing. So I can still be outside and not get hammered with mosquitoes and things like that.
I love that green tarp. That is
it's so nice, dude.
It's so nice. Yeah.
And it's easy to set up and it ties down well and it really performs well in high wind and all that stuff. But back to my build, I also wanted it to be when it was packed up, it didn't necessarily look like I was living in it. Cause like, when I would meet people on the road and like if they didn't know me and I didn't know them and they'd be like, hey, you want to go camping? I'm like, sure. I'd pull up my truck and they'll be like, where are you going to sleep? And then I'd pull out the slice and it's like, oh, that's badass. Like they couldn't see it, and that's what I wanted because I didn't want to be a big target on the road because, there were times where I'd go hiking for 3 or 4 days at a time, backpacking with Sierra. And if my truck was parked at a trailhead with all his fancy gear and everything like that, that's a target. And I never really got hit. I did get hit in town once, but it was just the punk high school kids that were pissed that I busted their kegger out in the backcountry one day because they had thrown a bunch of trash all over the place. So I like posted on social media. I'm like, who did this? And then they got busted. So they stole my fly fishing gear one time, which really pissed me off. But other than that, I've never had an issue.
Bro, don't get me started on trash.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Well, but 7.5 years on the road, I thought for sure I'd have more problems at with like campers nearby or whatever. I never had any problems. Like I was pretty shocked. Like my parents were always concerned. They're always like, well, you're out there by yourself and it's not safe. I'm like, honestly, I feel more unsafe when I come into town. Like I feel totally safe when I'm out there. Everybody, like, because I would go back so far into the backcountry. I'm like, if somebody else is back here, they're just like me. They're not back here. Yeah. They're not back here to go. They didn't four-wheel 30 miles back in the backcountry to steal sunglasses or something. You know what I mean? So if they're back there, it's because they wanted to be back in there. And so I ended up meeting a bunch of cool people like that. They'd be back in there and I would too, and we'd just trade stories about stuff and then trade phone numbers and always keep in touch. So it's kind of fun because over the years with just traveling around all these different states, and I kind of would go to the same areas, but I when I say same areas, like the towns, but then I'd always try to find new places to camp outside those towns. But I started getting friends in all these areas, which was nice. So when I roll back through there, I see people and stuff. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? And I mean, you guys know how it is. Like the truck camping community and nomad community is great. Like I think the people are incredible. A lot of us are self-starters. Nobody's really egotistical because we're all sleeping in the back of our trucks. So can't really brag about that, Yeah. can't one up somebody. Well, I'm sleeping in the back of my truck. What you doing? Like we're all doing that. And so that's what I like is like, you can get to camp and I've had it to where somebody's next to me in a really nice rig, but they're really intrigued with my little $300 slide out extension. Yeah. They're like, dude, this is awesome. You can go anywhere. I'm like, yeah, that's the goal.
The simplicity of it.
Right.
Yeah. And the budget factor. I mean, I didn't want to spend $17,000 on like a pop-up camper when I'm like, dude, I don't think I mean, like if you got the money and you want to spend it, that's fine. But I just wouldn't spend my money on that. I don't think. I think they're way overpriced for what you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if you spent $17,000 on your own custom build, it'd be way better. Because I look at a lot of those products and I think, okay, this was designed by somebody who's not on the road full time, and you can tell by the way it's laid out. It's not totally functional. And so, and I also tell people, like I'd have people ask me all the time, hey, how should I build out my rig? I'm like, wait till you get on the road. Like do a minimal thing. Just get your sleep set up in like a cooking area dialed in. But wait till you get on the road because your hobbies will dictate how you want to set stuff up. Like I like to fly fish. And, so I got to have areas to put my fly rods and all those things and my waders and all that gear. And so that's why I ripped out my back seats is because I made that storage area underneath Sarah's bed for all my fishing gear.
Yeah.
That was the motivation behind that, And I tell people, I'm like, if you build out your rig before you hit the road, like 100% build it out, I guarantee you're going to change it within the first like 2 or 3 months. Because I've gone through probably 6 or 7 renditions of my truck.
I'd say one of your most popular videos has been the 10 things you need.
Oh yeah. That was actually the first one. That was the first video that did well. That I actually put effort into. There was that one winter camping video I put up, and I honestly after that I was like, well, I'm not gonna do YouTube because it wasn't taking off. But I put a winter camping video up, and it was like the worst audio on the planet because I just got a GoPro. My finger was over the microphone, so it's like this is so good out there, it sucked. And I posted it, and then I didn't check YouTube for like almost a year. And then I got back on, and that video had blown up, had like 200,000 views. I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy. And people are like, where are you? Post more of this stuff. Yeah. And so that got me back into it and really going. So,
then your winter camping stuff does well too. Mm-hmm. People, especially with the new tent. Now the new tent is awesome. I like the old tent because you had more room, but this one you seem more comfortable in.
Actually, I'm not. I just faked it because I wanted to yeah.
That's fine too.
I'm going to go back to the Bighorn 3 for long-term winter camping. But then if I want to do any sort of backpacking or like polk sled, the sleds you can put on your waist and like, or you attach to your waist and you drag it into the backcountry. I'm going to order one of those because with the wilderness areas around here in northern Arizona and also southern Colorado, I could get into some insane stuff. And the nice thing about that Shackleton tent that I got from Ellis Canvas Tents, it's only 50 pounds total. The Bighorn 3, I mean, hell, the poles are probably 50 pounds. I mean, it's crazy the difference. And the size of it when it packs down, it's like 4 big duffel bags for the Bighorn 3 from Cabela's, whereas my new tent, it's like one little tiny package that is easy to manage. Yeah. So I could easily put that on a polk sled, put my stove on there, and go 10 miles deep into the wilderness area, and then like really have an awesome winter camping experience. So that's what I'm going to do this winter coming up.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
It always amazes me. You'll post a video or pictures and stuff, and it's like you're out there in a tent. And when we talk about getting snow here and we're camping, we got like 2-4 inches, something like that.
Yeah.
Now you got like feet, and you're shoveling like out and around in a walkway and a place to go for so you're to use the potty and all that stuff. And I'm just like, that's snow. That's winter right there. He's doing it.
Yeah, but dude, it was trial by fire, or I guess by snow, if you want to use the correct term. My first day out, I set up my tent, and then the next day I got a 4-foot snowstorm. I was like, shit. I was like, I don't even know how to work my stove. so I had to learn everything. So, but it's cool. Like once you get like the knowledge of how to work your stoves and you've got all that dialed in, like you realize you're like, oh, there's no weather that's too gnarly. It's just got to have the right gear. That's all it is.
What about wind? Now I know wind will ruin your day sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's ruined a lot of days. In the wintertime, it's bad because like the sustained wind is what's bad. Like the gusts in the summertime are what can kind of get you. But in the wintertime, I've had days where it's like 50 miles an hour sustained at camp, and you're just sitting there just like, ugh. Like I hope a tree doesn't fall over on me, or something like that.
Right.
Because
yeah,
and I've seen, like, I've been out and when it's been really windy and I've seen trees. I saw there was actually just in this past winter when I was in the San Juans, in one day I watched 2 aspen trees that were massive right next to me fall over.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh boy, this isn't going to be good. And so, and then Brian, what you were saying, like with the snow this past winter, just in those 2 months when I was in that one spot, because I had to stay there because I was going through the lawyer process to get my money back and stuff. So I had to stay in that general area. So I was like, well, I'll just stay in this one spot and not move. The snow walls that I built on the side were like end up being about 6 feet tall. And then the total accumulation in just that 2 months period was 10 feet. So
we can't not even comprehend that around here. I don't think we got 10 inches this year.
It's so awesome, man.
I had a company send me some snowshoes. And I was like, okay, this is the year we're gonna get some more snow. Nope.
That's awesome.
I've still got them. I can't do a review on them yet. Well, what about? So let's talk a little bit about your homesteading, because I know you've got big plans, and I know you've been working on your raised garden beds. You're gonna do some food production there. What about, like, is your end goal to build an actual cabin out there on that homestead?
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to like a cabin, or I still want to do the Forest Service lookout tower, which I think would be cool. I've got a really great spot for it. I've got 2 great spots for it actually. And one of my friends, she's a former regional manager for the National Park System, and she's like, "Oh, I can get you any floor plans for any historic fire tower that you want." She's like, it's like, I'll just email them to you or whatever. And so I found 2 that were in Oregon that were really cool. One was from like 1937, another one was from like 1945, and they're both pretty badass. And one of them is like 60 feet up, but I wouldn't do that tall. I'd only do like 2 or 3 stories to get above the tree canopy at my place, because the views looking west from my place are incredible. And I back up to public land, and so there's never going to be anybody behind me. And so I was thinking, if I can get up just to like at the canopy or a little bit above it, and then have a deck all the way around, for like just like being outdoors and all that stuff. And I'd make that deck big. I'd probably make it 6 or 7 feet deep, and then have a big overhang with the roof to like have it covered. Because during monsoon season, like, I didn't realize how badass the monsoons are out in Arizona. Like I didn't like people had always talked about it and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And I was like, well, I've been in rain before, and Kansas, where I grew up, we always had tornadoes and stuff like that and big storms, but nothing like out here in Arizona with the monsoons. My neighbor, for like rain catchment, because a lot of people do rain catchment out here for their water, he gets 12,500 gallons in the first month and a half from monsoon season. So he's like, I have my water for the year. Yeah, it's crazy. And so like the last 3 years out here, the monsoons have been really good, and the forecast is for this year is this more of the same. Like more monsoons like every day. And it's kind of interesting because like if the monsoons don't hit during the day, it will get up to like 95 at my place. But the monsoons usually hit by like 11 or noon, and it's like 65 degrees all day.
Okay.
So it's really nice. Yeah. Wow. And then all the seasonal creeks are flowing. Like the creek on my property will be flowing full time during monsoon season. And
do you plan to do rain catchment when you build your fire tower?
Yeah, probably, but I think more off of the ATV shed that I have, because I'm turning that back area, which was going to be like the cowboy cabin. It's going to be like my staging area for all the food production for the meantime until I get it up and running, and then I'll probably convert it over to like a little one room, place I can stay in. But for right now, what I want to do before the season hits is get a cover built over my camper, the Yellowstone camper that I have out there, and then hang that, and then have that go into a storage thing, and then also off the ATV shed. Get the roof set up on that, have a rain catchment there, and then I'd be good to go. Because like the wells at our place, you always hit, but they're like anywhere from 700 to 1,000 feet deep, and so that's about a $35,000 to $40,000 tab before you put. The nice thing is that the community that I live in has a community well, and it's really a good well. That we've got a 12,000 watt generator. I mean, I can fill up my 300-gallon water tote in about 2 seconds with that thing. And then the water tastes great. We have the cleanest water in America. That's technically, we're number one if you look on all the, the groundwater and the testing and all that stuff. And our water kind of tastes like honey. It's got a little sweet taste to it. So it's really good.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And we're an aquifer that no one else can tap into, like Prescott and Flagstaff, and they're just too far away. And the way the land works in my area is it used to be a massive cattle ranch. It was like the third largest cattle ranch in the country. It is almost 1/3 of all of northern Arizona, going to California. And when there was like 7 families that owned it and operated it for like 3 or 4 generations. And they got to the point they said, hey, we're going to start slowing down our cattle production. We want to sell off land so that people can, live back in here. And so the state said, okay, for every 640 acres you sell, you have to put 640 acres into state trust land. And so I back up to that state trust land, which is cool. So there's all these checkerboard parcels throughout the area to like, hunt and do all those different things. And then no one really comes around. And that's where I'm finding all those ruins back in my area too. And like amazing petroglyph rock art from Native American ruin stuff. And so, let's see, where was I going with that? Oh, so the ranch itself, I think they said it was 660,000 acres. Like it's crazy how big it was.
Yeah.
And now that they're scaling down and everything like that, there's not cows out there anymore. There's not cows running around your land, and it's just kind of in no man's land. No one really. I tell people where I'm at, they're like, "Where's that?" And I'm like, "It's like."
You kind of got it at the perfect time. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I got it before COVID, so I got it for cheap. I got 14 acres for $20,000.
Wow.
There was a parcel down the road. We had a 9-acre parcel. I just went for $90,000.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like before COVID, we'd average 1 real estate transaction per year in that area, and since COVID, it's about 26 a year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome though that you got in. You got in on Bitcoin low.
Right.
So I'm pleased about that. And then for setting everything up, I'm lucky with my soil. I tested my soil, and I've got both ends of the spectrum. I've got acidic soil, and then I have soil that's not acidic, so I can grow a wide variety of plants. All I have to do is just make sure to put the right soil in there. I'm going to start out with spinach, sweet potatoes, strawberries, apricot trees, and orange trees.
Yeah. And
then let's see, is there anything else in spinach? Yeah, that's about it to start out with, and then add more things. And then I'm going to do chicken, like egg-laying chickens and probably meat birds too. My buddy down the road that has a fully functioning homestead, he's done it right because he's on the barter system now, and so people come over to get their groceries, and he just gives them a, okay, well, you got this much, goat's cheese and goat's milk and meat birds, whatever. 5 gallons of diesel next time you go to town. I need some feed, and he trades everything now, which is amazing.
That's how it should be.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah.
He's like, check it out. And his only charge for the month was Starlink. He had nothing else on his bank transaction. I was like, dude, cool. So
I bet he's worked hard to get to that level. I'm sure you'll get there too.
Well, he's got 119 animals on his property.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
Yeah. So he's got quail, chickens. He's got both egg laying and the meat birds, and he's got goats. And he's got lots of goats. It's pretty crazy.
Are you interested in goats?
Probably not.
I never thought I'd ever ask a person, but
no. I probably won't. I won't do goats or anything like that. I'll probably just stick to chickens.
Okay.
And call it good. Because what I'm doing is like, through the YouTube channel, I get a lot of battery companies hitting me up, like asking to do reviews. So I'm starting to trade that now for other stuff. So I traded a Blue Eddy battery for elk meat because there's a guy down the road that goes hunting every year and always does well. So I traded for a bunch of that, and then for this year I've got coming up for deer season. I've got another battery I traded for deer, and so just trying to set that up. And when I go to Colorado, I always bring cutthroat back, and I trade that with people around. So it's kind of nice because like the thing about Arizona, which I find different than Colorado, I have friends that off-grid in Colorado, and it's kind of a different experience because they run to town a lot, but we can't do that because we're so far out. Right. And so we make do with what we have. And we even have like an old, we have our own, which we call our own like little dump area. And you can go in there and you can find the scraps that you need to build whatever it is you want. And so a lot of our stuff is repurposed. It's very much reclaimed lumber. All my stuff is reclaimed lumber out of my place. I found a guy who was selling 10,000 pounds of reclaimed lumber for $2,000. And so I bought that. And I've been just chipping away at that to build different stuff. I built my outhouse with it, built the ATV shed with it. Yeah. I built the raised garden beds, for growing food in my garden with that. And I'll use some of it to also build a little awning over my camper. So, and what's nice about that is, if you look at like wood costs, especially during COVID, a sheet of plywood was going for like $60, $100. It's crazy. And so to have it to where I had pretty much everything already paid for, and then I could just go in and just pick and choose, the wood that I needed to build stuff was really nice. So it's kind of nice. So all in, like people ask me like, how much have you invested in your place? And with the wood and then the camper was $6,000. It's a 1971 Yellowstone camper, 19-foot. That was just basically the interior was all ripped out and it's just like one big open area, which I love, and I've got a queen size bed there and everything. So I got that, and then also my 4-wheeler, everything with the land costs and everything, it was under $50,000, which I was thrilled about because I couldn't even find a parcel of land in Colorado for $50,000. That was yeah. And so and then I looked at too, like with Colorado, the problem that I was finding with a lot of the land is, Colorado has been picked over for so many years, and a lot of those counties only have like 10-15% private land. The rest of it's public land in the mountains because it's all national forest. Right. So you pay a premium and you're getting leftover scraps of parcel of land that, it's basically they'll subdivide the ones they don't want and then sell those, and you get the less.
I'm on Land Watch all the time looking. So yeah, I find that to be true. Yeah. Just looking through the offerings.
Well, and that's what's so nice about here in Arizona, like the place where I'm at, and they have like another 20 years where they're going to release more land. And they're going towards the wilderness areas, and so I'm keeping my eye out for friends and family that want cool land. Because like what I've found here in Arizona is that in northern Arizona, the whole area was created with volcanic activity, and it's still it's still considered an active volcano area because the last 2 eruptions that hit here were less than 1,000 years ago. So they consider if it's within 1,000 years, then it's still an active volcanic field. And so you get these volcanic peaks all over the place, but then there's these valleys too. And the valleys, in my opinion, really kind of suck. Like it's just scrub juniper. There's no pinyon pine. There's no old growth juniper. There's no alligator juniper. It's just that really kind of sickly looking juniper trees and just flat land. But then you get up on the sides of these like volcanic areas, and it's awesome. There's like huge boulders, and there's mountain lions everywhere, and there's bobcats running all over the place. You got elk. Elk were bugling next to my camper during hunting season last year.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, it's just crazy. And then you also get these seasonal creeks that come down when it snows or rains up there. That comes on the mountainside. It hits that. So those are where the choice parcels are. And that's what I tell everybody when they come out. I'm like, just look on the ridges on the sides. If there's stuff for sale up there, that's where you got to get it. So I lucked out with mine to get it before COVID because I think now that parcel would probably go for a lot more.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, dude, you are like as long as I've known you, you've been living the dream, but you're really living the dream now. I mean, you're really fine tuning your lifestyle.
Yeah, I feel pretty fortunate. And the thing is, the thing that I love the most about being out where I'm at is the solitude. Because like, I mean, I didn't leave the corporate world because everything was going good. I left because I was lost. Like I was doing fine with financially, and I didn't have a problem with sales because that's what that was my profession. I was always 100% commission. And I was fine with that. But I was just like, I felt like a sellout because I was like, I don't believe in anything I'm doing. I don't believe in these products, and I don't believe in the more mindset. like it seemed like among the salespeople there was always a competition to get like the brand new shiny car and all that crap, and I never bought into that. And so that's why coming out here and people, I don't know, I just there's a freedom to like being out here and just being away from everybody and not having any prying eyes, and not like I'm doing anything wrong, but it's just you get this free feeling that you don't get in other areas.
Well, and you're still connected too, though.
What's that?
You're still connected to society. You're just you control people's access to you. That's what you.
Yeah. Well, because with YouTube, you get a lot of people that'll hit you up, and I think 99% of them have good intentions, but I have had a few people that I get a weird vibe from. Yeah. And so that's where it's more like old school friends like you and people that I've known for a long time. It's like, oh yeah, we'll hang out all the time, but I am kind of apprehensive to the new people because it's weird. Like when my YouTube channel took off and people started recognizing me and stuff like that, like that's just, no one can prepare you for that. And then the funny story, that the first time I ever got recognized, I was in, like recognized like on the street. Like sometimes I'd be at a bar or something like that, and people would be like, "You look familiar." And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I do YouTube." Oh, that's what I've seen. But then I was in Crested Butte and I was working as a gardener for the town in the summer of 2017. Or no, 2018. And this car, and I would always take an edible before work because I'm out there trimming flowers.
That's what you do.
Yeah, I'm out there trimming flowers, listening to a podcast, driving around these little tiny pickup trucks. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have fun out here. And I wasn't talking to anybody, all day long, so it didn't matter. And I was on the main drag, and all of a sudden this car comes screeching up to me and like, and everybody jumps out of the car. And they start to crowd around me, and I'm thinking, like, am I getting kidnapped? Like, what's going on? And then this lady jumps out of the front seat, and they take a picture, and the guy goes, "Love your channel," pats me on the back, and like gets back in the car and just drives off as fast as they can. I was like, that was the weirdest interaction I've ever had. This is so crazy. But so that was cool. But you do get some people, like, you wonder if they're hitting you up because they think that you could do something for them or something.
Yeah,
unfortunately. Yeah.
Now, you said about new people. I can vouch for Brian, because I know you just met him, so I can vouch for him.
Well, I followed Carlson Adventures for a while, and I just got back on and followed it because for those that are watching, I got shadow banned on YouTube back in February 2022, and one of the things they do when they shadow ban you is they go through and for some reason they'll just unsubscribe you from different channels. So I found over the last year and a half that I'm like, oh, I used to be subscribed to that channel, like Flemlow Raps. I don't know if you ever watched that guy. He's from Cincinnati, and he does all the videos about the NFL stars, which like the ones like Ryan Leaf, the ones that got in trouble and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I was unsubscribed from him, and I watched him all the time, and I thought maybe he stopped doing YouTube or something. And then I got on his channel, and it was unsubscribed. So, but Brian, I've been following your adventures for like 3 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, same. Like I was telling you before, like when I used to drive, I listened to your podcast and everything, and it's just. You never know. I'm kind of having the same problem with myself right now with YouTube. So we'll see.
I think a lot of people are. YouTube's crazy.
Yep. I've reached I think I've reached a peak on mine, and that's fine. I enjoy making video, the process of making videos more so than the fact I'm sharing it with people.
Yeah.
So, well, I tell you what, you care if we open up for questions from, I think people have been waiting for questions.
Oh, sure.
From the chat. Okay, guys, if you have a question for Brian, put all in caps question and hit us up with a question. Well, hit him up with a question. So let's talk, while we're waiting on those, let's talk a little bit about your girl there.
Yeah, little Sierra pumpkin.
So when did you first adopt her?
Let's see. So we hit the road July 5th, 2015, and I adopted her the Christmas prior to that. So it was the 28th of December of 2014 is when I got her. She was about a year old, they thought. She was a res dog in Page, Arizona. And so adopted her, and then she was really malnourished when I got her. And she, like, her coat was real wiry, like her hair was real wiry. She had some hair missing. Mm-hmm. She was real scared and all that stuff. And so what I did was I just took her out and we just went hiking all the time, because I owned a sign business in Denver at that time. And so it was just the weekends when the home builders would want traffic to their new home subdivisions. So we literally had off Monday through Friday, really. And as long as I have my phone on me, I could still work and talk to my employees and that stuff. And so we go out and truck camp, and that's how I kind of tested it out. I don't know if you remember, but I'd go out for like 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't tell my clients, and they'd be like calling, and I'd be like on some trail in Moab. They're like, "Oh, we need this for this meal." "Oh, yeah, I'll get that for you." And I was like, whatever. and that's when Sierra really started blossoming. She just really had fun. And the great thing about having a cattle dog with you, and especially like a red heeler, is once you develop a bond with them, they don't leave your side, so you don't have to worry about having them on leash, unless of course it's an area that requires a leash. But what I mean by that is they don't run off, Yeah. And so really great trail companion, and they're tough as nails. I mean, like we go backpacking, and we do like a 10 or 12 mile day. For this human here, I'm dying. She takes a 5-minute nap and wants to go do another 10 or 12 miles. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So, and then over the years,
I've always thought about Sierra is she's just has the sweetest disposition.
Yeah, she really does. She loves everybody. She's like an old soul, And one of the things that she really loves to do is that when I go fly fishing, she'll like swim out to, if there's like a rock out in the water that's big enough for her to sleep on, she'd swim out to it and go take a nap while I fly fish. Which I was like, what a cool dog,
Yeah, what dog does that? So I know, and we don't have to go too far into this, but I know she's got cancer now.
Yep.
And she's slowing down a bit.
Yep.
And you had said that you're trying different supplements. What was the prognosis as far as amount of time, or do they give you that?
They don't give us that because they don't. I mean, I didn't do a CT scan the last visit that we were at the vet. We just did X-rays because the CT scans are $2,700 a pop, and we've already done 3 of those, and so my budget for that's kind of shot. But the X-rays showed her lungs are filled with tumors, unfortunately, and she also has tumors on the underside of her spine, and then one in her anal sac. And so the anal sac one, I think, is the one that's bothering her the most because I can see it. Like there's like 3 prongs sticking out. It's like this gnarly tumor. And that one's real aggressive. And so that one grows the fastest. She doesn't cough. She doesn't breathe heavy. And so her doctor's like, well, even though she has tumors, it doesn't seem to be bothering her. As far as like, she's like, I've seen other dogs that have tumors in their lungs and they just breathe, they pant nonstop,
Yeah.
And Sierra hasn't had that, and she still goes and runs around with me on trails and so that, albeit a little bit slower, but she still goes out. And so I've been working with a company called Vitality Science out of West Virginia, and they make nutraceuticals and basically natural supplements for dogs and cats that have various illnesses, and even stuff for as simple as allergies. But when Sierra was first diagnosed with cancer, they said you got a maximum of 6 months and probably only 3 months of good health. And here it is, almost 2 years later, and she's just now starting to decline.
Yeah.
And so I have to think that like those supplements really kept things at bay for a while, And unfortunately, with the lung tumors, what happens is the tumor starts to form, and then the area around it scars. Yeah. And so like it keeps decreasing the amount of oxygen that they can absorb, and eventually it'll get to the point to where she can't absorb enough, and then it'll be time. But her doctor here is super cool. She actually follows the channel, so she'll call me up and ask where she can go camp. Where should I go camping this weekend? I'll tell her. She's like, you always have the best spots. I was like, well, if you spend your entire life just driving 4x4 trails every day, you find good spots too. But I talked to her yesterday. She called to check in on Sierra and just see how she was doing and stuff. So I do have pain medication for Sierra right now. It just makes it to where she can walk a little bit easier because that tumor is just right there where it hurts her when she's kind of walks along. And I knew that when she was diagnosed that I wasn't ever going to be able to cure it. But I'm really pleased. You've
gotten a lot of time out of it.
Yeah. And so I've had an opportunity for us to for me to say my goodbyes to her and stuff like that. And it's been really hard because for 7.5 years, the only time that we spent time apart was when I took her to the hospital in Denver when she was diagnosed with cancer. And she was away from me for 1 day, and then she had surgery a couple weeks later, and she was away from me for 1 day. Then that's the only time we've been apart from the time I adopted her. Because I was lucky to have the schedule where I could always take her with me because I had my own business, when I first hit the road. But luckily my cousin acquired that, so I didn't do it anymore. And I think once I got out of that, of having to communicate with the corporate environment, that's when I was really able to like settle into outdoor, living and being on the go all the time and really immersing myself into it. And then it was great when I'd like forget what day it was. People be like, today's date. I'd be like, yeah, it's April 4th. They're like, it's March 26th. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know what time it is. I don't know. I don't know anything.
Hey, we got a question for you here.
Okay. How much firewood are you going through in those ones? Oh yeah. So the stove and the tent is always, so yeah, who's your outdoor? So I would go through, if it was a pretty cold night in Colorado, and let's say it was like most nights were like -5 to -15 Fahrenheit. And I have a big stove. I have a 4-dog stove. It's the DX model. It's about, I think the firebox is 22 inches long by 16 wide by 15 tall. So that's a pretty big firebox. Mm-hmm. So I can load that thing up, which is nice, and then turn the damper on real low for the airflow so I can get a long burn out of it. But even with that big stove and being able to load it up and get like really long burns out of wood, I'd still go through anywhere from like 20 to 30 pieces of wood a night. Oof, wow. Like from when the sun goes down, which in the wintertime, like it's dark by 5 p.m. Like it's straight up dark, especially if you're camping in Colorado where there's like any sort of like, mountains to the west. When I was camping over in the Buena Vista area, when I first started winter camping, I would start getting shadows at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then by 5 o'clock, it was pitch black, like no light at all. So you got about 5 hours before you hit the sack. And then usually I get up like once in the evening to stoke the stove. And then in the morning, get up before the sun comes up. And then, because it comes up later, it comes up like 8 o'clock in the morning in the wintertime. And then I, burn the stove to make breakfast and stuff like that. So by the time the sun, from when the sun went down to when the sun came up, anywhere from 20 to 30 pieces of wood. But then in the daytime, you didn't have to run it because you'd have passive solar. Yeah. And so the passive solar, as long as it wasn't like super windy out to where you get a little bit of airflow through your tent, which would push cold air in there, I normally didn't have to run my stove during the daytime.
I will say one thing that everybody needs to know is that you are the king of breakfast foods.
Yeah, I love that.
Dude, the stuff that you make. Of course, you've done that for years, but I look at that, I'm like, I can't make that.
My new favorite is including hash browns in my breakfast. That is so good. It takes forever to get the hash browns because I like to eat a lot of hash browns because I fill up the entire cast iron skillet with it. But dude, that's the best breakfast. You sit there and the birds are chirping in the morning. The sun's coming up, the snow's glistening, and all that stuff. You're having a killer breakfast by the stove. Like that. Those are the best times, the best moments that I've ever had out there. It's so much fun.
Awesome.
So
it's awesome. Well, I tell you what, we're at time, but hey, man, we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us, and we're gonna have fun. I'm gonna hang out with you this summer.
Yeah.
After I do Albert, and tell everybody where they can find you.
Okay, so I'm on YouTube and Rumble and Odyssey under Off Grid Backcountry Adventures. Same with Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, and I don't do a ton on Facebook and Instagram. I'm more active on YouTube and Rumble. And I'm trying to grow the Rumble channel to have less reliance on YouTube because the shadow ban has just been horrendous, as far as like income and all that stuff. So that's what I do. And I try to post at least once a week to YouTube, but typically a couple times a week and do live streams and all those things. When she's no longer with us, I'll probably take a little bit of a break just because I'll need to. I won't be able to do videos and stuff like that. So I'll probably take like a month break from that. But I really enjoy making the videos. Like you were saying, Chris, I think it's fun to edit. In college, I did marketing as a major. And so, it's kind of fun to try to figure out what people be interested in seeing and things like that. Yeah. And just the creative aspect of it, I think is great. And so I don't necessarily go to a lot of meetups, like overland meetups, because I'm always like, well, I could go fly fishing or something. And so like Phil from Down to Mom's always like, you need to go to these events with me. I'm like, dude, I'm going camping next to a river. I'm not going to go hang out with
why would you?
Like, what are you talking about, dude? So, but so that's where you can find me, Off Grid Backcountry Adventures. And then also my name, Brian Gallion, Galyon. So I'm on Facebook.
Well, I'm going to throw you back in the green room, and we're going to close the show, and then we'll talk to you in a little bit.
Okay.
Once again, thanks so much. We appreciate you
so much.
You bet. It's been great chatting with you guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Sorry, Brian. I asked all the questions this time.
Hey, that's what we decided before this. It's like,
I know.
listen, you lead it. I'll ask questions, but you've known him a lot longer and you know him personally.
I didn't want you to
I
go
just
to
know him
sleep.
through. No, I just know him through. It was almost kind of like I could comment on like a podcast or something, live comment, because like I said, when I drove a truck over the road, I listened to him quite a bit in his podcast, and then I've watched him through YouTube. Just always interests me.
He gets to listen to us.
Right.
See how the turntables have turned?
But you definitely turned me on to him on YouTube and everything. And then I thought, wow, he's living in that Tacoma. I couldn't, I have the same size bed, and I don't know how tall Brian is, but at 5'10", I couldn't imagine trying to sleep back here. Is he? So he's taller than me. I could not imagine trying to sleep back here. So, well, not everybody.
Well, right. That's true.
Not everybody.
Okay. So let's, Brian, where can people find you?
Well, believe it or not, I do have a YouTube channel, Carlson Adventures. So if everybody would like to head on over there and hit me up, I did just break 800 this week. But like Brian said, he's had trouble with his YouTube. Mine, I don't know what's going on with that. I was getting a pretty steady number of subscribers every single day, and it has just died. So I have no idea what's going on right now with that. But hey, everybody, if you haven't subscribed, hit me up there. Instagram, Facebook, same thing. Carlson Adventures.
Yep.
Where can we find you at? Besides
nowhere, because
the local gym, like Terry says.
Oh yeah. Well, you can find me out getting my fitness on. That's what you can find me out.
Yeah, that's where I've been too.
Instead of my
we're on day 12.
That's right.
Fitness sandwich in your mouth. Day 12, man.
I may do a video at the meetup, but I'm taking a little time off, and I'm really concentrating on my health because I want to get pumped up for bigger and better adventures.
So speaking of the meetup, I am going to do one video, a review video, guys. So anybody that's coming to the meetup, if you want to partake, hit me up. I've had Borvo Broth send me their beef flavor before, and then I had them send me their new chicken. And I saved 5 packs out of the 6. And I thought, why should I just say, yeah, this tastes great? I am going to I think I can split it up and have up to 10 people, 4-ounce cups, 10 people sample it. And all I ask is you sample it, give me your honest
you should record
reaction to it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to record it, and I want everybody hey, try this out. Tell us what you think. Right. And that's the video I plan to do. Get everybody's reaction instead of just mine, because you've had the chicken as well. And
I've got both. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. So where can we find you besides the gym? That hiking guy,
Chris Colbert Vlogs, and just in the gym. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And we're going to thank you, everybody.
Make sure you go check out Brian Gallion.
Yeah, make sure you go check out his channel. Go hit his
channel up.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
See you.
Thanks, everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.